tired of myself, tired of this town. Oh my, oh hell yes. Honey, put on that party dress. Buy me a drink, sing me a song. Take me as I come, cause I can't stay long. Last dance with Mary Jane. One more time to kill the pain.
Tom Petty passed away after suffering a heart attack at his home in Malibu, performing over the weekend. He sold 80 million records. A true rock superstar passes away. Harold Kramer, author and former curatorial director of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. Howard, welcome to Big 550 KTRS here in St. Louis.
Of a title, curatorial director, yeah.
Curatorial director. Tom Petty, it's one of these, we keep losing these rock stars and we keep forgetting how great they were till they pass away.
Yeah, well, with Tom, it's way too young. I mean, 66, I feel is young, and when you consider that right now the Rolling Stones are touring Europe and those guys are well into their 70s, it really is sad. And, Tom just finished a tour last week, did this big homecoming series of shows, the Hollywood Bowl, to wrap up this fantastic 40th anniversary tour, and then he's gone. And still, he had a lot more music in him to give. The quote you just played, that clip you just played, really also explains a lot of his feelings about music, and that is, it's magic. And he respected the fact that it's not an easy thing to do, and you have to respect the guys you play with, you have to respect the audience, and when it all comes together, you have to let it flow on its own, and don't mess with it too much. He got it.
It sounds like he was a really nice guy.
He was. I was very fortunate enough to work with him about 10 years ago on the 30th anniversary, put together an exhibit that exhibited at the Rock Hall in Cleveland, and spent some time with him. Went to his home, had dinner with him, and met his wife and his stepson, and just had a great time. And he was very expansive and generous and warm with his time and understanding not really the history of rock and roll, but his history within rock and roll and where his art stood in the pantheon of rock and roll.
I don't think the Traveling Wilburys is getting enough attention as he passes away. I mean, that was a super group sort of, put together on a whim, wasn't it?
Well, it was kind of a thing where they just were hanging out, and the ball started rolling down the hill. Next thing you know, they're in a studio at Bob Dylan's house or Jeff Lynne's house recording. They really enjoyed that. But the thing about Bob was, or I'm sorry, about Tom was that really was just a side thing that he liked doing because, George Harrison was his best friend, and just the fact that he got to hang out with his best friend all the time and play music, who also happened to be one of his heroes, it became a great thing. But Tom's music with the Heartbreakers, his 3 solo albums, the music he did with Mudcrutch, he put together the band from before the Heartbreakers a few years ago, did a series of records and a series of performances. And I got to tell you, that's some of the best music that Tom ever produced. I urge you to go back and find the song Crystal River by Mudcrutch. It'll blow your mind. It'll blow your mind.
I also I find it fascinating that he fought the record companies back when you couldn't fight the record companies.
You're right. He had just had his huge commercial breakthrough with Damn the Torpedoes, and his follow-up record, the record company wanted to raise the list price, and he drew a line in the sand because he felt that it was too much to ask the public to pay that much money for a record. I mean, he was a guy who grew up with nothing. He was from a working-class family. He barely had 2 nickels to rub together. He understood the value of $1 and what it meant to the audience, and he made a stand, and it meant something.
And ultimately, the record company backed down, didn't he?
Not only did they back down, he continued to have great success, and it really solidified his ability as an artist to control his own destiny.
This was his last tour. That's what he said. Did you believe him?
I figured that he was not going to do extensive touring anymore. He never really liked being on the road. He liked performing, and if you've ever been on tour before, there's a few hours of the day that's really great, and a lot more hours of the day where it's just crushing boredom. He liked being home, but I didn't think he was done making music or even performing. I just think it would have been much more selective.
What's his signature song?
Oh, gosh. That's an impossible thing to nail because, I mean, the guy could have done every night, played his greatest hits record front to back, whatever those 18 songs, 20 songs, and people would have been ecstatic. But he had so much more in terms of his depth as a songwriter and the group, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers did as a performing group, that you can't stick with just one. But I will tell you that the song Crystal River by Mudcrutch has been running through my head almost constantly.
Harold Kramer with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Thanks for checking in, Howard. Good stuff.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
You got it. Howard.